Hey,
Hey,
how are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay, so I honestly haven't been doing that much MCAT stuff.
Mm-hmm. How's your anatomy
Because
class?
huh?
How's your anatomy class?
Yeah, it's all right. It's not bad. Like it's not hard. It's just a lot of information.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I have an exam
Mm-hmm.
Friday and a quiz tomorrow. So
What are you guys going over? I'm just curious.
this exam is gonna be the back and upper limbs.
Okay, so like latissimus dorsi and
Yes.
erector spinae
And
and
the back was easy, but it's
mm-hmm.
the hand, the upper
Oh
limbs
yeah,
are, they didn't know how complicated
the
upper limbs were.
tarsals and metatarsals and all the ligaments
Yes.
and stuff. It's cool how there's no
Yeah.
muscles in the hand.
Huh?
It's cool how there's no muscles in the hand.
Wait, say it again.
Oh, it's cool how there's no muscles like in the fingers and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But there's like 15, they say 15 intrinsic
Mm-hmm.
muscles,
Yeah.
whatever that is. But okay, let me see. So I don't know if we could just probably do some cars passages or if we're gonna start with psych social because I know that's what we're gonna focus on this time around.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really been doing. I have to take a full length this weekend, but it's for the class, so I have to take a Kaplan full length.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
So I still.
Psych Soc, it's good to make like the Anki cards because it's pretty much all content.
Mhm.
Like when people talk about content review and I say you don't really need to do content review, the content review that you have to do is for Psych Soc because that's pretty much content.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
what I remember doing was as I would take like the practice test sections for Psych Soc, like when I would review them, I would make lots of like Anki cards for them, so I'd know the
Mhm.
materials.
Okay. Let me see. I'll just share my screen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
You want to do Kaplan ones?
For cars, I didn't know what other source to use because I wasn't going to start using AMC until like July.
Uh huh.
So yeah, I only have Kaplan, and I know you said next step doesn't have good cars questions.
Well, the only cars that is close to the MCAT is the AAMC stuff. I know that you've done the question packs already,
Mhm.
so I'm trying to think what else would be a better source for cars, like the second best choice. It probably isn't Kaplan, but I mean we could do behavioral sciences also, or we can do if there's any AAMC like cars passage that you know you don't remember completely.
I don't
That could
remember
also
any of
be
them, honestly.
okay. I think we
That's the
should
way my
do.
mind works.
I think we should do AAMC cars like question pack,
Hmm.
and yeah, we should do like those passages. If you don't remember them, then we can treat them as they're new. But
Hmm.
it's just that anything else that's any other source of cars is pretty much lacking in in how close it would be to the actual cars.
Pull up. Um,
Yeah, that prep hub down there. Yeah. Okay,
mm,
so yeah, the one of those cars question packs.
okay. So I'll also, I guess, try new strategies that I
Mm-hmm.
was.
Yeah, let's because I'm sure we've done or the Picasso one. Let's see. Let's do some one that's like way in there. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've done this too. Let's do like something that's way in there that like we have no memory of.
Yeah,
Let's
I
see.
don't think we did. We didn't go over it. We didn't do this one.
Okay. All right. So you tell me how we're going to do this. Like, what do you remember? As not in terms of the passage, but what do you remember in terms of how to go about cars passages?
So
Mm-hmm.
I've been, because like I was saying, we have the Kaplan course, and I have like tutors that from the school. And what they have been telling me, because I kind of forgot what
Mm-hmm.
we were doing,
Yeah.
but what they were telling me, the last thing she told me was like try to read through the passage fast just to get an understanding, because I am a slow reader. And that's my one of my biggest problems in cars. And when I can get the answers down to 50%, which most of the time I can, I just end up choosing the wrong answer. She just says to choose the one, answer it like how they would answer it and not how I would answer it. And also obviously stay away from the extreme
Well, yeah. So
and look for patterns, all that stuff.
okay. So what we would do is we would read it. We'd read
Mm-hmm.
it first, like for real, because the cars passages, yeah, the way that I treat every other passage on the MCAT is the opposite of how I treat the cars passages, because you know how I
Mm-hmm.
say, like basically look at the questions first and then look for the thing in the passage. For
Mm-hmm.
cars, it's a very holistic understanding that you need to have,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're going to read it like for real. Um, but I want you to be able to separate what is important from what's fluff. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I
So
say,
they also,
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
no, sorry.
I was just saying they also obviously told me to highlight like you said, you used to always tell me that transition words,
Mm-hmm.
descriptive words, try to figure out the tone in each paragraph. I
Yes.
know they were trying to tell us to implement outlining, but that doesn't work for me because
Yeah,
it just takes me too
the
long.
outlining that I talked about was basically just bringing like, but think of each like be able to summarize a paragraph like in a word.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, what we're going to basically look for, because all the cars passages, they're basically, and the author is basically going to be talking about something, and the
Mm-hmm.
author is going to have an opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to basically sort through everything and find what the author's opinion is, what the author's main idea is, basically, and
Mm-hmm.
you know things, and also like in terms of like sentences, I call it like the most valuable sentence. You can think of it as like
Mm-hmm.
MVP. Basically, that is going to be like the sentence that actually unveils what the author's thoughts are, and everything else is just going to be either supporting evidence for that thought, or it's going to be some additional details that we don't need to really pay attention to the first time we read it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we answer the questions, we're going to go back to the passage. So, all right, let's just start. So, I'm going to read it out loud. Obviously, this is going to be slower than how you do it on the test, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like, whenever you learn something, you do like it very slow at first, and then as you practice, it's going to start to become automatic.
Mm-hmm.
So, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Literary historians tell two stories about the novel in America before the Civil War. First, the Puritan tradition, enhanced by Scottish common sense philosophy, created an atmosphere hostile to fiction. Second, the sparseness of American social life made conventional novels. Oh, I'll tell you what to highlight.
Okay.
Okay, made conventional. Oh, and if there's any, but yeah, if there's any word or anything that you don't know, tell me. Okay.
Okay.
Made conventional novels difficult, even impossible to write. These two narrative strands led to a single conclusion. The would be American novelist before the Civil War was drawn or forced toward a literary form better suited to American imaginative space. The romance, created in an ambiance of isolation, alienation, defiance, and apology, that left its traces in the work. Okay, so what what are we what are we get like what do you get from that paragraph?
Basically, there's two different of I guess recounts about the Civil War. But both of them kind of like the first
What
one.
about the Civil War though?
Uh, well, it says before the Civil War.
But what
How?
about before the Civil War?
Uh, mm, I don't know.
Like,
Literary experience
are
tell
they
two
talking about
stories.
the Civil War in terms of like the history of it, or are they talking about something else?
The novel in
The novel,
America. Yeah.
right? So they're talking
Hmm.
about a writer who writes a novel, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So they're basically saying that there were two kind of stories about the novel before the Civil War, but
Hmm.
we don't really care about the two stories, aka narratives. What I look at is that, they lead to a single conclusion. So I would highlight this. I would highlight where it says would be American novelist. And also, like, let's practice on, yeah, so good. So you're good at being able to find the words. So I would
Oops.
highlight that. Wait, what's up?
I hate this laptop. It's the one they gave us at the school, and it's Windows, and I don't like Windows.
Oh yeah.
What is it? Alt? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So would be American novelist, and then I would say, um, highlight forced, and then highlight imaginative. Okay,
So, what do they mean by the would-be American novelist?
so they're basically saying that someone who wanted to write a novel. A
Hmm.
novel, by the way, is fiction, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're saying someone who wanted to write a novel. There's two narratives about how that happened, or how a person who wanted to write a novel before the Civil War would write a novel. Like,
Hmm.
one, they're saying there's the Puritan tradition, right? That created an
Hmm.
atmosphere hostile to fiction, aka hostile to writing novels.
Hmm.
And secondly, the American social life made conventional novels difficult, even impossible to write. So basically, they're just saying um, that before the Civil War, if you wanted to write a novel, it
Hmm.
would be very hard to do so. Um, so the would be American novelist, aka an American novelist, like if someone would be an American novelist but they can't, right?
Hmm.
They were effectively forced towards something to write about, to write about something that is imaginative.
Okay.
Let me ask you some things about certain words. So when they say conventional novel, what do they mean by conventional?
Like the usual,
Good. Perfect. So unconventional is like kind of
unusual.
kind of like the
Nothing.
way I tutor the MCAT, which is very different. Okay, good. So we basically took that paragraph and we just summed it up in this word. And the reason that I highlight like this, I don't highlight anything other than like nouns or or like I don't highlight like I should say yeah, I highlight like the very like basic functional elements of a
Mhm.
sentence. So you can like not words like or and or things like that.
Mhm.
So okay,
You
so
said don't highlight or and.
yeah, correct. Because we
Okay.
want like the purpose of highlighting is just to really make the things that pop be the things that are make just the very important stuff stand out.
Okay.
So we essentially took that paragraph and we just put it all into 3 words.
Got you.
Okay.
So that will be your outlining.
Yeah, if you can call it that. I would just call it like maybe like summarizing in as few words as possible.
Okay.
Okay. Now, this powerful critical myth, which at least since the 1950s has controlled our understanding of the novel in America, does not hold up well under empirical investigation. For one thing, expressed hostility to fiction was no less strong in England than in America. Much of what Americans wrote and said about novels was derived from sources written in the British Isles. Scottish common sense philosophy should not be described as an American phenomenon. Second, the, now it's in quotes, conventional novel. Why is it in quotes like that?
Like the quote unquote I
Yep,
just said yeah,
it is quote
basically like
unquote.
it's not really conventional.
Yeah, because he's referring to what people said in the narrative before about
Yeah.
conventional novels. He's referring
Hmm.
to it as they call it conventional, but how do you think he feels about it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a question. How do you think he feels?
Oh, the opposite. So he
Yeah,
doesn't think it's conventional.
good. So he's basically in this paragraph, like so far, like dispelling the myths that were presented in that first paragraph.
Okay.
So he's saying second, the so-called conventional novel at that time was only in the process of becoming conventional. Third, a great many novels were written and published in America at this time of supposed hostility to fiction. Why does he say supposed?
Because it's not really hostility. He doesn't believe it's hostility to
Good,
fiction.
good. And a great many more were being read. So,
So for here,
yep.
oh, the I was gonna say the tone for this is more so neutral because it was just information, right?
Yeah, he's
And
basically
then
presenting like narratives.
yeah. So the second one, I would say he has a
I would
mm,
say to highlight this, like the first sentence, this.
oh,
Yeah, you could double
just
click on
this.
it. Yeah, if you double click on it, yeah, and then highlight myth. Yeah. So
I would
this
say he
myth,
has a negative right tone towards that myth.
correct. Good. So you see how I'm not highlighting powerful or
Mm-hmm.
critical because we don't need to highlight that. We just need to know
Mm-hmm.
that it's a myth.
Okay.
That's how this guy feels about it. And
Okay.
he
So
goes
would
he
you
goes
still highlight conventional and suppose it?
honestly, I wouldn't at this point because the rest of what he's saying is he's supporting evidence for himself saying that it's a myth because he
Okay.
refutes he refutes each of those points. Like when they said that it's the Puritan stuff and the Scottish stuff, he refutes
Mm-hmm.
that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then the conventional novel thing, he refutes that. And then the third thing he says is that novels are already being written and read in America. So the rest of that is just him, basically refuting the points made by those other people in the first paragraph.
Okay.
So all we need from this is just this myth, because that gives us an idea as to how the author feels.
Okay.
Okay? And no doubt they will ask us questions later about, how does the author support this statement, blah, blah, blah. Then we can go back and look at those. But for now, all we need to know is that the author doesn't, believe in that. Okay.
Okay.
So the next paragraph. Book reviews published between 1840 and 1860 in major American periodicals offer evidence of great American readers' interest in fiction. In the 1940s, the periodical press in America came into its own. There were fewer than 125 American magazines in 1825. By 1850, there were about 600, with most of the expansion occurring during the 1840s. Many of these magazines were local or specialized in their appeal, but a few dozen, by virtue of their circulation, influence, or national scope, are properly called major. Some journals passed the 100,000 subscriber mark in the 1850s, a number that would extrapolate to over 1 million today, including Harper's, which is good, by the way, Godey's, Peterson, and the Ledger. Hold on.
So this paragraph, he's basically, oh wow, actually.
But
oh wow.
While Horace Greeley's Tribune in the aggregate of daily and weekly editions surpassed 200,000 in 1858.
Okay, so he was just basically
this is just
further
more information that further. Yeah, we don't need to highlight anything there. Okay, a survey of 21 major American periodicals published during all or part of this period, including the 5 mentioned above, reveals more than 2,000 reviews of 800 separate novels, about half of them American in origin. The reviews ranged in length from a single sentence in an omnibus review article to articles of many pages devoted to a single book. More often than not, American novels were received warmly by reviewers. In fact, those on magazine staffs who set themselves up as guardians of critical integrity complained about indiscriminate puffery among viewers rather than the opposite. Of course, a review does not necessarily represent the notions of anybody except its author, and even many congruent reviews may express only the opinions of a particular group of interested people. But perusing reviews from this period reveals that novel reviewing was conducted in constant awareness of what people were reading, and was directed toward trying to understand the reasons for public preferences. The reviews offer guidance and correction in a way that suggests reviewers had a fairly precise idea of what they were guiding and correcting. So he's kind of saying more of the same thing here.
He's just talking about reviews.
Yeah. He's just basically giving us information that support his statement that American novels were both being written and being read, which he said in the paragraph before, but in this paragraph he says in addition to American novels being written and read, they were reviewed and people liked them.
Okay.
So far I wouldn't highlight anything there yet. Okay, now the last one, the small number of American fiction writers who are now called major did evidently have trouble supporting themselves as novelists. What? Sorry. But the explanation for this difficulty cannot be hostility in the public at large to fiction in general. The America into which Hawthorne launched The Scarlet Letter, have you ever read that?
No.
And Melville launched Moby Dick, have you ever read that?
Nope.
Was a nation of novel readers. So I would highlight basically America. Yeah, good. And then nation of novel readers. Good. So basically, tell me what this thing is saying overall.
It's basically saying that there is a myth to the whole novels thing in America, which isn't really true. Well, which isn't true.
Yeah, what was the myth saying?
the myth saying that was saying something about the hostility to fiction.
Yeah. The myth was saying that basically in America, before the Civil War, people who wanted to write novels couldn't
Mm-hmm.
because people didn't really like to read it, people didn't really like to write it, and everything he says afterwards provides evidence to the contrary. So, and it's summed up at the end by saying America is a nation of novel readers.
Mm-hmm. So can I
So,
try to go through the question before you tell me what you will pick?
okay, let's look at it. All right, together. So, assume that 19th century American publishers would acquire European novels as easily as American novels and publish them at a higher profit. Would this information, if true, further the passage author's argument? So
So,
now we have to kind of look, uh, or now we have to think about. So, okay, what is that question asking? Like, they're presenting a fact. Well, they're presenting something that you are saying if true. So if they're
yeah, so
saying, yeah,
yeah, so basically they're saying, can in America, just like Europe, can you produce or what is it? Get novels as easy and sell them at a higher profit. So I would go back to this passage because I know he talked a lot about the increase in sales.
yeah. So okay, let me put it this way. So they're saying that. So okay, because the question is about whether or not American novels are being published, right?
Hmm.
And they're saying that American publishers, if they took a European novel and published that, they get more money.
Could acquire European novels as easily and publish them. Oh, them is the European novels. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So if that was true, what would it do to the number of American novels that are published?
Decrease.
Good. Good. So we have to now see that. Now we have to see if that would further uh, the guy's argument. So let's see. There's two yeses and two nos, right?
Hmm.
So we don't necessarily know. So let's look at what they say. So yes, it would make more impressive the fact that one half of periodical reviews from 1840 to 1860 were of American novels.
That doesn't really answer the question though,
Yeah,
because it's not talking about
but
European
would
novels.
it be that would that later part be a true statement? Because
That
they did
it will
say,
make.
yeah, because they did say that half of the ones that were published were American, right?
Oh yeah.
Now, if you can make more, if people make more money from publishing like European novels, yet half of the ones that are published are American, it would kind of make it more impressive, right?
Yeah.
So, first part of that, I don't know. Like the yes or no, I don't know yet. But the
Hmm.
second part of that is that's kind of true, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's look at the next one. Yes, it would reinforce the passage author's view that literary nationalism was not a viable force during this period. So,
I wouldn't pick
yeah, I
this
don't
one.
think the author is saying that. I don't think that, if he's saying that, he's not really saying that.
Yeah, I don't remember literary nationalism being
Yeah,
talked about.
because that basically means that people are going to be uh, for. But I would still read it. For some reason I don't like why would AAMC of all people that on the test lets you use strike throughs just cause it to disappear with the X button.
Yeah, I have no
So
idea.
Yeah, I would like leave that for now. Let's look at the other ones. So that no, it would merely demonstrate that American publishers made profit a top priority. Ooh, I don't really think that is really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's see. No, it would shed no light on the preferences of the American reading public for novels. So I would be stuck between A and B. So because they would basically the second half or the second part of those two choices are true statements perhaps, but we have to now see if it's a yes or a no. Like would it strengthen the argument or not? So now I would like look into the passage. So do you see where it says um, half of them are American in origin? Oh, okay. Well, you are looking at some good stuff. So I would even highlight where you're at, where it says evidence of American readers' interest in fiction, right?
Uh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he's basically saying that Americans like to read American, or okay, it's basically saying that American readers like fiction, so that's what that is saying. And then underneath that, where it talks, or the next paragraph, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would highlight where it says half of them American in origin. Because that's saying that basically, like of all the reviews, right? So this survey whatever happened, right? And they looked at 2,000 reviews of 800 novels. And then around 400 of those novels are American, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, so that leads me to lean towards A, but let me see what else they're saying. So they're saying that then it says more often than not, American novels were received warmly um, by reviewers. So I would highlight American novels were received warmly by reviewers. So basically, that's saying that yes, half of the books that were published or the novels that were published were American. American novels, like people liked them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then let me go to that paragraph underneath that. And then here, basically, they're saying, you know, basically, like maybe a small number of the American fiction, aka novel writers, right,
Mm-hmm.
had trouble supporting themselves as novelists, which meant that they didn't make that much money. But the explanation for that is not that the public at large disliked fiction, right?
Yeah.
America basically is a nation of people who like to read novels.
Mm-hmm.
So now, going back to that question, right? They're saying that the publishers can get European novels as easily as American novels, right? Oh, sorry, this is like block. Okay, American
Mm-hmm.
novels, English novels, you can get them both easily, but the European novels, if you publish them, you're gonna make more money. So I would say it would be A. And let me just look at D one last time. Okay,
Oh.
cool. But yeah, obviously on the test you're gonna just want to hit A, but I like to look at, since we're doing this slowly, right? For like to
Mm-hmm.
get it started, right? I would
Mm-hmm.
just like look at D again, but yeah, A is going to be it. Like yes, of course, when I looked at it for the first time, I would have chosen A, but since we're working on this like slowly at first, I wanted to go through each of the choices so you can be like, yes, maybe, like So basically, A is like a maybe, B is like probably not, C is probably not, D is like probably not, but close to like maybe a maybe.
Mhm.
But tell me why. All right, so in your own words, why do you think A is correct?
Because if they still are, where is it, having publishing European novels at a higher profit, if they are publishing European novels at a higher profit, but they're still one half of the periodical, what it says in A,
Mm-hmm.
that they're American novels, then that means that they are selling a lot of American novels.
Yeah, it makes it more impressive, right?
Hmm.
Because at first it's like telling you like I don't know like it's yeah it's basically saying that um yeah half of the novels that were published were American, and and you make less money if you publish American novels, yet half of them still are American. It makes it more impressive.
Yeah.
That makes
Okay.
complete sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And you see how we like reasoned that out, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Now, let's see. Which of the following assertions. So, this is, you're going to get these types of questions. It's always like the same, like, four types of questions. So, this is, which of the following assertions is not clearly supported by historical research provided by the passage author? So, all that stuff, when we did our first read through, where I said, don't worry about this, the evidence stuff, now is when we go back and see what is actually backed up by historical research.
Okay.
So let's
And
just
that's
go through the
here.
choices. It's going to be everywhere. So for this type of question, right, we
Hmm.
go through the choices and we look in the passage and we see if the choice is in the passage and supported by evidence in the passage.
Okay. So I know this part was
So
at the
19 let's see,
end.
19th century American writers now considered major had difficulty supporting themselves by writing. So they're saying that evidently did have trouble. That actually doesn't seem like it is supported by historical research, but let's just look at the other choices as well.
Hmm.
Many novels were being written and read in the U.S. from the 1840s to the 18 yeah. So that's saying. So now, right? Tell me if
Hmm.
if there's giving evidence for that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right. They're saying literally in the 1840s, 100 fewer than 125. Blah blah blah. That's a lot of historical evidence. So
Hmm.
B is definitely out. So you can do that. Okay. American novels were well received by the major American periodicals of the mid 19th century. So they're saying the that in the next paragraph, right? Well
Yep.
received. We basically have that highlighted, and
Hmm.
the evidence is like a survey of 21, yeah, like American
Yep.
periodicals, right? So oh
Hmm.
yeah, don't hide, but yeah. So that okay.
Oops.
Now, the
Okay.
periodical press in the United States grew in size and influence during the 1840s. So let's see. 1840s periodical press. Good. You know exactly where to look. You're doing very good.
Mhm.
So, came into its own, right? And then let's see.
Yeah, this is
Then it
them
grew
giving.
up to, then it grew to 100,000, and then this other one grew to 200,000, right? In exact
Hmm.
years. So that's exact historical evidence, right?
Yep.
Good. So it's going to be A. Perfect. So you saw how we went through that?
Yep.
Good. And yeah, you're good at being able to find the words in the paragraph in the passage. So
Hmm.
don't worry about
Sometimes.
slow reader stuff. If you're able to look and find those words like that, like
Hmm.
make your own like control F. like
Yeah.
Yogi Poochie. Okay. So
Okay.
now let's see. What role does the sentence "Scottish common sense philosophy should not be described as an American phenomenon" play in the passage? Okay, where is that? Perfect. Good. Very good.
Hmm.
So okay. What so that's referring to like what's said in the first paragraph, right?
Hmm.
In the first paragraph
So
they say
here.
that they said that Puritan tradition enhanced by Scottish common sense philosophy made an atmosphere hostile to fiction, right? And
Hmm.
they're saying that this is an American um like an American thing. And then later on he says that um like before that he says for one thing expressed hostility to fiction was no less strong in England than in America. So it's happening basically in England as well, right?
Hmm.
And then they're saying that much of what Americans wrote and said about novels that he says is a myth were derived from sources written in the British Isles, right?
Yep.
So then he says, therefore, basically, Scottish common sense philosophy should not be described as an American phenomenon because it's not. It's not an American phenomenon.
Yep.
So then okay, what does that play in the passage? So let's see. It doesn't really introduce a point that will be developed in detail later. Let's see, offers additional. Okay, what do you think?
I was thinking. hmm, I was thinking C.
Oh, okay. Let me see. So it reminds the reader that hostility to the novel originated abroad. And let's see. It suggests. Okay, so D is out, A is out, and I'm looking at B and C. So B, right,
Hmm.
is let's see, offers additional support for the points made in the preceding sentence. The preceding sentence says that basically, American hostility to fiction also happens in England, and much of what Americans wrote about our hostility to fiction is derived from stuff that happened in England. And therefore, we should not describe Scottish common sense philosophy as an American phenomenon because it's not. So now, let me tell you this. Between B and C, right? This is the
Hmm.
50-50 thing that you're talking about.
Yep.
Now, this is where a subtlety comes into play.
Hmm.
And I want you to tell me, and if you look at that question again, what can the question tell you, like give you as a nudge in the right direction as to whether it's B or C?
What role does the sentence play in the passage? Because since they say like in the passage, I thought it was so it's more broad. They're looking for a more broad answer.
So where it says I want you to focus on where it says what role does that sentence play? So in terms of why did the author write that sentence?
I would still be kind of stuck between those because I could say that he wrote it to remind the reader about the hostility that it originated abroad because he said in the first paragraph that it created an atmosphere hostile to fiction.
Mm-hmm. So they say that hostility to fiction was no less strong in England than in America.
Okay. Okay.
So
No
what
less
I
strong.
get from that is that both America and England had some type of expressed hostility to fiction.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's the sentence. I guess if I would have read it, would have set the answers apart.
oh wait, say that again.
If I would have read that sentence, because I think I heard you say it, but I didn't really process it. But expressed hostility to fiction was no less strong in England than in America, then I wouldn't have put originate. And I guess for C2, he didn't say that it originated abroad.
Yeah. So this is definitely one of those tough 50-50 ones. I'm not
Hmm.
even sure, but I think it would be B, but it can very much
Okay.
be C. I hope it's B.
Yeah, it is.
Got it. So the reason that I chose that, right, is because they say
Hmm.
what role does that sentence play, and that means that why, like, did the person who wrote this choose to put that sentence in? And then the other thing is, we don't necessarily know that it originated abroad because they're just, they have that hostility to fiction both in America and England, right?
Hmm.
So I'm curious as to say how their explanation is for this.
Their explanations always suck.
Let's see. So yeah,
But
there
yeah,
we
it
go.
was this part.
Yeah. So you see how the Cars explanations aren't actually that bad, but you see how they
Hmm.
said he never specifically said that it originated abroad. He at most
Hmm.
said that it's just as strong abroad as it is here.
Okay.
Yeah. And then above
Okay.
that, for the explanation of this, they're saying that in the context of the passage argument, the sentence is a logical extension of that statement. Okay?
You said the what now?
So for B, there so when they ask you a question like what purpose or what role does this sentence play, think of it
Hmm.
as, in terms of when the person is writing it. So their explanation, they wrote that it's a logical extension of what was said in that preceding sentence.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a good example of one of those questions that you say you're able to pare down to 50-50.
Hmm.
Now, so it's very, and it's to basically to go from 50-50 to 51-49, right? Is is
Yeah.
is that's where like it gets really nuanced and very subtle to be able to tell the difference between the two.
Got you.
Okay?
Okay. Let me go to the next one.
All right. Since the 1950s, some literary critics and historians have proclaimed the death, in quotes, of the conventional novel in America, attributing its demise to a widespread breakdown of social cohesiveness and an increase in individual isolation. This death of a novel theory would be logically consistent with which aspect of the passage? I kind of look at where it says second, the sparseness of American social life made conventional novels difficult. I wonder if
Where's that?
there's what's up.
You said that's in the question?
So they're asking which aspect of the passage is basically consistent with that. Let me see what D says, because I was looking at that first. So let's see. Um, yeah. So I am kind of looking at B. They word it
Okay,
differently,
so
so I'm going to ask you, how do you know? So okay, so they're basically saying, right, that some people think that the conventional novel in America has died,
hmm
and they say it's because there's a breakdown of social cohesiveness. What's meant by that? Social cohesiveness?
so people society isn't like cohesive, like it's not together.
Perfect, good. And therefore there's an increase in individual isolation, right?
Hmm.
Now, so what I looked at first was where it says in the first paragraph, the sparseness. What's sparseness?
Like spread thin,
Yeah,
like
not
spread out.
not that much, right?
Hmm.
Of American social life, right?
Hmm.
Now, they word it differently in the choice, but so okay. In choice B, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that telling us that is that saying the same thing as the sparseness of American life, social life?
No,
Well, why? Why do you think that?
like it doesn't say anything that like it says the myth that the literary romance was compatible with the 19th century American milieu. I don't, yeah, I don't know what milieu is.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to ask you that because they basically word it in a different way to make it confusing, but you know that it is referring to that because it says the myth.
Okay. Okay, let me just into which aspect.
Yeah, all right, let me look at the other choices too while you look at that. Okay, so the research findings on 19th century, okay, research findings on 19th century attitudes towards a novel in England. So, all right, again for B, they're talking about the literary romance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you see where it says in paragraph 1, it says the romance,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the romance created in an ambiance of what?
Isolation, alien. Okay.
So
I didn't see that part.
so so are the is what is that consistent with in that question stem?
Breakdown or individual isolation.
Yes.
Oop, that's not what I meant.
So I
Okay.
am leaning on that, but I just want to see one last thing. The myth that it was compatible, okay, with the 19th century, that literary romance was compatible. I'm leaning towards that, really.
Well, let's see. I just want to go through each one and see why
Sure.
it's not it. So A, the myth that the Puritan tradition made Americans hostile to the novel form. But that didn't talk about isolation or like it just is saying how Americans felt. That's what the Puritan tradition is saying, but it's not saying that the social cohesiveness was
Mm-hmm.
being broke down. See research findings on 19th century book reviews. That was against the, so that was saying that there was nothing like that was against the myth. So it's the opposite of what the myth is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And same with the, I
And then
think.
let's look at that last paragraph to see if there's anything else that kind of like could help us.
And this doesn't say anything about like, well, it says, but explanation for this difficulty cannot be hostility in the public at large to fiction in general. That's just talking, that's still talking about like how to
Mm-hmm.
feel about fiction and things like that. But this one,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now, the tough part about this, right, is the
Mm-hmm.
milieu part.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to do that. Like, they're going to. So basically, like, the question is how are you going to look at that and see that it's the same thing as them saying, sparseness of American social life, isolation, alienation, defiance?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't know the word milieu, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically a milieu is just like it's like a mix of like like a society essentially, or a lot of
Okay.
things kind of. But so if you don't know that word, like how are you going to figure that out? Maybe if you looked at the literary romance part, but what really gives it away is that it says the myth. Because there are two things that he says that are myths. One is the Puritan thing, and two is the sparseness of American social life.
Got you.
So
Okay.
that is what, yeah. I just looked at milieu. It's literally social environment, by the way.
Oh, wow.
So in
Okay.
other synonyms, environment, background, backdrop, setting, context, atmosphere. So again, if you don't know any of these words, let me know, okay?
Okay. So for this one, let me see if I can work through it, I guess.
Okay.
If the information in the passage is accurate, which of the following would one least expect to find in a randomly selected American magazine published between 1840 and 1860? So here he said, many of these magazines were local or specialized in their appeal, but a few dozen, by virtue of their circulation, influence, or national scope, are properly called major. So let's see. An article laminating the abundant reviews of novels
Oh, a
by
lamenting?
lamenting.
What,
An
do you know that
article,
one?
no.
Lamenting? What do you think?
Mm-mm.
What do you what it makes you
Talking
feel like?
about,
Talking about in what way?
I don't know.
In a good way or a bad way?
A good way.
Ooh. Okay. Bad way. Like a lamentation?
Okay. Okay. So I guess, okay, if it was the actual test, I would come back because I don't know what that means yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, an editorial decrying Americans' hostility to their own indigenous fiction. Decrying. So taking away. Yeah. So I would cross this one out because decrying would be the opposite of crying or undoing of crying, right? So basically it's what I take from B is an editorial going away from that myth.
So decrying, I'm pretty sure, is like, you know, kind of like crying about it, but like complaining about it.
But kind of what?
But so okay. Well, first, all right. So lamenting something like a lamentation is basically like saying something, or it's like, how should I put it this way? Um, if someone dies in your family or something, and you're going through grief, you lament that you're basically like saying that this is something that's bad that's happened. So if you lament the abundant reviews, it means that you are not praising it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the definition, I just looked it up, is a passionate expression of grief or sorrow. So it's basically, so an article lamenting the abundant reviews, right, is saying
I
that
get.
basically that we're not. The article is saying that is kind of like crying about saying that we don't have enough reviews.
Okay.
And decrying something is to publicly denounce it.
So yeah, I would feel like they would denounce the hostility. Like that would be something we can expect to see.
They're saying in an editorial. Oh well, they're looking for least expect, right?
Yeah. So
So
we
so
would expect that.
yeah.
We could
So
expect that.
so they're saying let me just see like a little bit below that in that next paragraph because it kind of continues. Because okay, now they're saying. So they're saying that some people on the staff who thought of themselves as guardians of critical integrity complained about indiscriminate puffery. What's puffery there?
Those on magazine staffs who set themselves up as guardians of critical integrity complained about indiscriminate puffery among reviewers. Lying?
Hmm?
I don't know.
Puffery? Think of like puffing something up, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you puff, think of something being puffed up. Like
Oh, okay.
it's like something that is getting an excessive amount of praise.
Got you.
Like in news, there's a such thing called a puff piece,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a story that's meant to talk at length about how good something is.
Okay.
So anyway,
So,
those are just some words. So let me see. So let me see the other choices.
so I would say I would say this could be found because it said per using reviews from this period reveals that novel reviewing was conducted in constant awareness of what people were reading and was directed toward trying to understand the reasons for public preferences.
The reviews offer guidance and correction in a way that suggests reviewers had a fairly precise idea of what they were guiding and correcting,
Correcting, yeah.
right? So now
So
they're
I
saying that
cancel D.
that yeah. So if we chose, something, what would we least expect to find, right? So just leave that for a sec. Leave D for a
Mm-hmm.
sec. All right. So let's look at A, right?
Mm-hmm.
So A is saying that so A would say that there's an article that laments or mourns basically the abundant review of novelists. So that's basically an article that says, you know, there are too many reviews and it's not really something that they like,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that seems like it's essentially the
Least, right?
or the puffery thing. Oh no, it seems like that would be possible because of the puffery, because some people
Right.
complained about the puffery.
Uh, wait, it said those on magazine staff. Oh, complained about the puffery. Okay.
Yeah. So if you lament something, you're essentially saying that you're against it, right? So if an
Mm-hmm.
article says that they're against the abundant reviews of novels by American novelists, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
kind of see that by the people who say the you know where it says the magazine, the people those on magazine staffs who set themselves up as guardians of critical integrity, like the ones who state that um, the integrity of their criticism is very important. They complained about indiscriminate puffery, which is, kind of like false praise among reviewers rather than the opposite.
So, question, because I know for the most part, or what I've been hearing for the most part, is you should be able to answer these questions without outside knowledge. So, like,
Oh, yes.
what in what in the passage, if because if they didn't give the word lamenting in the paragraph, I mean in the
So the
passage.
outside knowledge part is like about knowledge of, what Harper's is and stuff, but the vocabulary words aren't really considered outside knowledge.
Got you.
So that's why I want to, that's why I say, like, if there's any word that you see that you don't know, like, to let me know. And
Hmm.
I guess that's also why, like, so many pre-meds have trouble with cars. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's why, yeah, we're gonna we're gonna know some words, okay?
Okay.
Because it's very important in this. So
Okay.
basically, yeah. What's up?
So I would cross out A and D.
Because A would be there, right?
So I think because an editorial decrying, which means denouncing Americans' hostility to their own indigenous fiction, I feel like that would be expected.
Um, I'm trying to see where it does state anything about American indigenous fiction. American in origins, American novels were received warmly. Favorable review of a new American novel copied from a British periodical? What? Where does it say anything like that?
The only place that really talks about British stuff is like up here.
Yeah. Let me see where. Okay. 1840 to 18. Wait, they're saying. Wait. Randomly selected American magazine, right?
hmm
And they're talking about American
I think
periodicals.
it'll be C because it says here many were local or specialized in their appeal. Well,
Yeah, it doesn't
yeah,
say
and then
anything about. Yeah, about.
but he did say a few
Hmm?
had the national scope and are properly called majors. So are those the ones that were mostly written? Because then C could be right. Because a national scope would cover British things.
Yeah, let me see that third paragraph again because that's the only thing that says half of them are American. All right. So that means that there are going to be some reviews, but they're American periodicals. I favorable review of a new American novel. Why does it say copied from a British periodical? If the
Let
information
me
in the passage is
see.
accurate, which of the following would one least expect to find in a randomly selected American magazine? What did D say again? An essay reflecting the influence of Scottish common sense philosophy. That's not an American phenomenon. The conventional novel at that time was only a process. Okay, great. Many
Because
novels.
it only says about half of them American in origin.
Yeah, but it does say that they're American periodicals, right? So
Mhm.
that means that Americans are, reviewing American novels as
Yes.
well as like British novels. I just don't. I'm just trying to see where it says anything about it a favorable about it being copied from a British periodical. This is a pretty difficult question, actually.
Let's see. I guess now we would
Decrying.
have to use strategy.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely. It's because I'm trying to also
so out
find
of
where
these,
there would be something about decrying Americans' hostility to their own indigenous fiction.
I feel like out of these, then if we're doing strategy, then C and D both are talking about something that's not American.
Yeah. Okay. What the hell? Let me see.
Of
Um.
course, a review does not necessarily represent the notions of anybody except its author, and even many congruent reviews may express only the opinions of a particular group of interested people. So I think B would be there.
What the? Okay. Editorial decrying Americans' hostility to their own indigenous fiction. Ooh. An essay reflecting the influence of Scottish common sense philosophy. Okay, what would be the least? Okay, they're saying that constant awareness of what people were reading and directed towards trying to understand the reasons for public preferences.
Hmm.
And review offered guidance and correction in a way that. So, hmm. let me take a look at the question stem one last time, and then I'm just going to pick one. Which of the past, if the information in the passage is accurate, which of the following would one least expect to find in a randomly selected American magazine published between 1840 and 1860?
I think if it's randomly selected, then it will be whichever one is part of the major.
Yeah, go up a little bit. Let me see. Scottish, okay. Conventional, no. Okay. Alright. Wait, much of what Americans wrote and said about novels were derived from sources written. Okay. So, okay. Well, hold on. So, derived from sources written in the British Isles. That could talk about D. What the hell?
E or C?
Conventional novel, okay, written and published at the time. A great many more were being read between 1840 and 1860.
I'm gonna stick to B.
Evidence. Least expecting. Geez. Okay. Alright. Just because they're running out of time, let's think. Least expect to find in a randomly selected work from 1840 to 1860.
Because it says book
think?
reviews published between that time offer evidence of American readers' interest in fiction. So I would say D. If it's their interest in fiction, and the Scottish common sense is hostility, right? Because why would they?
Oh yeah, this is least. Okay, fine. Let's do it.
Oh, I changed my answer.
Okay, this one was hard.
I need to stop doing that.
Let's see. Well, I mean, okay, so let's see. The authors pointed out that this hostility, one of the critical myths posited by literary historians, largely did not exist. Great many now. Okay. Unlikelies, half of them were American. And then let me look at the other things. Let me look at C.
What do they mean? Oh, because.
Yeah, let me look at the explanations. So, okay, C is saying much of what they wrote were derived from the British Isles, okay. And then the last one points out that it did have an effect.
Why do I should have kept my answer.
Oh, there's nothing you could have done in this situation. Because I was, I couldn't even, get this one. Because this one is hella tough. Let me look at B's explanation. Oh, crap. I have to...
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another meeting at 4:45. But
okay.
Damn it. Is there
right? I'm gonna definitely be practicing. Ooh, how do I stop sharing?
Yeah, this is passage 5. Okay, so once I'm done with my meeting, I'll take another look at that question or something. Or if you can email me the screenshot or whatever.
Okay.
I'll let you know, but I'm gonna take another closer look at that. But yeah, that one was damn hard. Okay, but we got everything else though, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so. But
I'm gonna finish. I think it's like 1 or 2 more questions, so I'll finish it.
Okay, and you can't. I guess you can't do 5:30 or whatever.
No, because I have I gotta go.
Gotcha.
To the lab and study for anatomy.
All right, I'll send you an email after my next meeting and about what to do next, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.